but he gave her a love she never expected, though they forced her to marry a servant. She grew up in a large house where rules were heavier than love. From the outside, everything looked perfect. The house was respected in the neighborhood. Her family was known for their status, their manners, and their traditions. But inside those walls, her voice was small, and her choices were even smaller. She had learned this truth very early in life. She was the kind of girl who noticed small things. She noticed how the morning light entered her room for only a few minutes before being blocked by tall walls, noticed how laughter was allowed only at certain times and how silence was expected the rest of the day. She noticed how decisions were always made by elders, especially men, while women were expected to agree quietly. But she never complained openly, but deep inside, she dreamed of a different life. She wanted to work someday. She wanted to make her own decisions, especially about her future. Sometimes late at night, she imagined herself walking freely on a road with no fear, no pressure, and no judgment. Those dreams were her secret. She never shared them with anyone because she knew they would be called foolish. Her parents were not cruel people, but they were deeply tied to tradition. To them, honor mattered more than happiness. What society said mattered more than what their daughter felt. They believed a good daughter was one who obeyed, one who did not ask questions, and one who accepted her fate with silence. They loved her in their own way, but their love came with strict limits. As time passed, problems began to grow in the family. Financial pressures slowly entered the house like an unwanted guest. Expenses increased, respect in society became harder to maintain, and whispers from relatives became louder. Every gathering turned into a reminder of expectations. People asked questions about her marriage. They judged her age. They made comments that felt like sharp needles. Inside the same house worked a man everyone called a servant. He had been there for years. He did every task given to him without complaint. He cleaned, he carried things, he followed orders, and he stayed invisible most of the time. People rarely noticed him unless they needed something done. He spoke little and kept his head down. To the family, he was reliable but insignificant. She had seen him many times, but never truly looked at him. To her, he was just part of the house, like furniture that had always been there. Society had taught her to see people by their position, not by their heart. She never imagined that her life would one day be tied to his. One evening, everything changed. She was called into the main room where her parents and a few elders were sitting. The air felt heavy. No one smiled. Her mother avoided eye contact, and her father looked serious in a way that made her chest feel tight. She sat down quietly, her hands folded, her heart beating faster with every second. They did not ask how she was. They did not ask what she wanted. They spoke as if the decision had already been written somewhere and only needed to be read out loud. Her father explained that the family was facing difficulties. He spoke of responsibility, honor, and solutions. His words sounded calm, but to her they felt distant and cold. Then he said it. They had decided to arrange her marriage, not to a distant relative, not to someone of similar background, but to the servant who worked in their home. For a moment she thought she had heard wrong. Her mind refused to accept the words. Her heart felt like it had stopped. The room felt smaller, and the walls seemed to move closer. She asked questions to say no, but her voice would not come out. Her mother finally looked at her, her eyes filled with a strange mix of sadness and firmness. She said it was the best solution. The servant was loyal, hardworking, and already part of the household. The marriage would reduce expenses and solve many problems quietly. People would talk at first, but they always did. Eventually they would stop. No one asked her if she agreed. She felt humiliated, confused, and broken all at once. Her dreams shattered in seconds. All the hopes she had carried silently now felt useless. She wondered what she had done to deserve this. Was she being punished for dreaming too much, for wanting a choice? She wanted to scream, but she knew it would change nothing. In that house, emotions were not strong enough to fight decisions made in the name of honor. That night, she could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the words again and again. Her future, which once felt open and full of possibilities, now felt like a closed door. Tears rolled down her face silently. She did not want anyone to hear her cry. Crying would not cancel the decision anyway. She thought about the servant. She felt anger toward him, even though he had done nothing. In her mind, he became a symbol of everything being taken away from her. She believed this marriage would be a life of shame, control, and regret. She imagined a future where she would be looked down upon, whispered about, and pitied. The next day, the house moved as if nothing had happened. Meals were prepared, chores were done, and conversations continued. Only she felt different, like she was carrying a heavy secret on her chest. When she saw the servant that morning, she quickly looked away. Her heart was full of fear and resentment. Later, she found out that even he had not been consulted. He had been informed, not asked. The decision had shocked him too. But unlike her, he did not show it. He accepted it quietly, the same way he accepted every order given to him in life. Preparations began quickly. There was no celebration, no joy. Everything was done simply and quietly, as if the family wanted the event to pass without attention. Relatives whispered, neighbors judged, and rumors spread faster than facts. She became the center of unwanted attention, yet no one asked how she felt. Inside her, a storm was forming. She felt powerless. She felt invisible. She felt like her life belonged to everyone except herself. As the days passed, she slowly understood a painful truth. The marriage was not about her happiness. It was about solving problems. It was about convenience. She was a solution, not a person. Standing alone in her room one evening, she looked at her reflection and barely recognized herself. The girl who once dreamed of freedom now stood facing a future she never chose. She promised herself one thing in that moment. She would survive. Even if her voice had been taken away, even if her choice had been ignored, she would not let her spirit disappear completely. She did not know it yet, but this forced beginning was only the start of a journey that would change her understanding of love, strength, and dignity forever. The wedding passed like a quiet shadow. There was no happiness in her heart, no excitement in her steps. She felt like someone walking through a scene that did not belong to her. The rituals were completed, the words were spoken, and just like that, her life changed its direction. She left her parents' house not with tears, but with emptiness. It felt as if her emotions had gone numb. She moved into a small house that stood far from the comfort she once knew. It was simple, almost bare. The walls were plain, the rooms were few, and the silence felt heavy. This was now her home. The idea frightened her more than she wanted to admit. She sat quietly in one corner, unsure of where she belonged in this unfamiliar space. Her husband, the man everyone once called a servant, kept his distance. He did not try to talk much. He did not try to act like he had any authority over her. Instead, he stayed respectful, almost overly careful, as if he was afraid of crossing an invisible line. This made her uncomfortable in a different way. She had expected harshness, but what she found was quiet restraint. The first few days passed without real conversation. They spoke only when necessary. Simple words. Short replies. No emotions shared. She avoided looking at him directly. In her heart, she carried anger and disappointment. She felt her life had been reduced to something small and unwanted. Every sound in the house reminded her that she was trapped in a life she never chose. She missed her old room, even though it had never truly felt like hers. She missed familiar routines, familiar faces, and familiar spaces. At night, she lay awake, listening to the silence, wondering how long this life would last. She felt lonely in a way she had never felt before. Even when people were around, she felt unseen. Her husband noticed her distance, but he did not complain. He woke up early every morning and left for work. He made sure there was food in the house before he went. When he returned, he asked gently if she needed anything. Most of the time, she shook her head without looking at him. He accepted that quietly. People in the neighborhood noticed her. They watched her closely, whispered behind doors, and judged with their eyes. Some felt curious, some felt pity, and others felt superiority. She felt exposed, as if her life was now open for public discussion. Every look felt heavy. Every whisper felt sharp. Inside the house, silence ruled. Meals were eaten without conversation. Even the sound of spoons felt loud. She often stayed in her room, staring out of the small window, watching the sky change colors. She felt like the world was moving forward while she was standing still. She questioned herself often. She asked why her life had taken this turn. She wondered if she would ever feel normal again. Sometimes anger filled her chest so tightly that it became hard to breathe. Other times, sadness washed over her like a slow wave, leaving her tired and weak. Her husband never raised his voice, never questioned her silence, never demanded anything from her. This confused her. In her mind, she had prepared herself for control and pressure. Instead, she found patience. Still, she refused to soften. She believed kindness could not erase the pain of a forced decision. One evening, she accidentally burned her hand while cooking. The pain was sharp, and she let out a small cry before she could stop herself. He rushed in immediately. His face showed worry, not anger. He quickly brought water, helped her calmly, and stepped back without touching her more than necessary. He asked if she was okay and waited for her answer. She nodded silently, surprised by his concern. That moment stayed with her longer than she expected. Still, she reminded herself not to misunderstand. One kind act could not change her reality. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, a routine formed. He continued to give her space. He spoke to her gently. He treated her with a level of respect she had rarely experienced before. No one ordered her. No one told her what she must do. That freedom confused her more than strict rules ever had. At times, she noticed how tired he looked when he came home. His hands showed signs of hard work. His clothes were simple. His life had never been easy either. But she pushed those thoughts away. She believed understanding him would mean accepting her fate, and she was not ready for that. One night, she overheard neighbors talking about him. They spoke of his background, his position, and how unexpected the marriage was. Their words were full of judgment. She felt uncomfortable listening. For the first time, she realized he was being judged too, just in a different way. She began to see how carefully he carried himself in public, how he avoided conflict, how he remained calm even when others spoke down to him. There was dignity in his silence, a strength she had never noticed before. Still, her heart remained guarded. She kept emotional distance, afraid of accepting a life she had not chosen. She believed love could not grow in a place built on force. Every night, she reminded herself that this was temporary, even though she had no idea what temporary meant. One evening, rain poured heavily outside. A sound filled the house. She sat near the window, watching the drops hit the ground. He came in quietly and placed a warm cup near her without saying anything. Then he left the room. That small gesture made her chest tighten. She did not understand why. She felt torn between resentment and curiosity, between pain and comfort. Between what she had lost and what she was slowly seeing, she hated herself for noticing these small details. She feared they would weaken her anger. Inside her, a quiet battle was beginning. She still felt trapped, still felt wronged, but cracks were forming in the wall she had built around her heart. She did not yet trust him. She did not yet accept this life, but something had shifted. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was filled with unspoken thoughts, unanswered questions, and a strange sense of calm she did not want to admit. She did not know it yet, but this stage of silence and distance was shaping something deeper. The marriage that began without her choice was slowly moving toward a turning point she never expected. Time moved forward quietly, without asking permission. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly the sharp edges of her anger began to soften. They did not disappear, but they no longer controlled her every thought. Life inside the small house settled into a steady rhythm. The silence that once felt heavy now felt familiar, though still full of unspoken feelings. One morning she woke up feeling weak. Her head felt heavy, and her body refused to move with its usual strength. She tried to ignore it, telling herself it would pass. But as the day went on, the weakness grew stronger. By afternoon, even standing felt difficult. She sat down, feeling dizzy and unsure. He noticed immediately. He had learned to notice small changes in her behavior. Without making her feel uncomfortable, he asked softly if she was feeling well. She wanted to say yes, to avoid any conversation, but her voice came out tired and slow. That was enough for him to understand. He brought her water and made sure she rested. He did not panic or make her feel helpless. He simply stayed nearby, ready if she needed anything. When she slept, he made sure the house stayed quiet. When she woke up, he was careful not to ask too many questions. That day became a turning point she never expected. Over the next few days, he took on more responsibility around the house without saying a word about it. He prepared simple meals, kept the space clean, and made sure she was comfortable. When she tried to help, he gently asked her to rest. There was no control in his tone, only care. She watched all of this quietly. Part of her felt uncomfortable being looked after by someone she had emotionally pushed away. Another part felt something she had not felt in a long time: safety. It confused her deeply. As she slowly regained strength, she began noticing things she had ignored before. She noticed how carefully he listened when she spoke. Even when her words were few, he paid attention. He never interrupted. He never dismissed her thoughts. It felt strange and new. One evening, while sitting together in the same room for the first time without tension, she asked him a simple question. She asked about his day. The question surprised him. For a moment he hesitated, as if unsure whether it was truly meant for him. Then he answered honestly, without complaints or exaggeration. He spoke about his work, the long hours, and the effort it took. He did not blame anyone. He did not show bitterness. He spoke with calm acceptance. As she listened, she realized how little she knew about the man she now shared a life with. That conversation opened a small door. After that, words came more easily. Short conversations turned into longer ones. She learned about his childhood, how he had started working at a young age, and how life had taught him patience more than anything else. He shared these things without seeking sympathy. He spoke simply, honestly. She found herself listening with interest. His life had been hard, but he carried no anger. That strength impressed her in ways she did not want to admit. In return, she began to speak about herself. Not about her dreams yet, but about small things. Things she liked, things she missed, things that made her sad. He listened with the same attention. No one had ever made her feel that way before. One night she woke up from a bad dream. Her heart was racing, and fear sat heavy in her chest. Without thinking, she stepped out of her room. He was still awake, sitting quietly. When he saw her, he did not ask questions. He simply offered her a seat and waited. She sat there, breathing slowly, calming down. He stayed silent, but his presence felt steady. She realized then that he was not someone who tried to fix everything with words. He gave comfort by being there. From that night on, she no longer felt completely alone. Small acts of kindness continued to appear in her days. A cup of tea placed near her when she looked tired. A soft reminder to rest. A respectful distance when she needed space. He never crossed her boundaries. That respect slowly built trust. She began to see how much effort he put into making sure she felt safe and valued. Not once did he remind her of the marriage or her responsibility as a wife. He treated her as a person first. Outside the house, life was not always kind to him. She saw how some people spoke down to him, how they questioned his worth. For the first time, she felt uncomfortable with that behavior. She noticed the way he remained calm, how he refused to let bitterness change him. One day, someone made a disrespectful comment about their marriage in front of her. Before she could react, he calmly responded, defending her dignity without raising his voice. He did not insult anyone. He simply stated his respect for her and walked away. That moment stayed with her. She realized then that he was protecting her in his own quiet way. Her heart, which she had locked tightly, began to open. Not completely, but enough to let light in. She still felt pain about how the marriage had started, but she could no longer deny the kindness she was receiving. She started questioning her own assumptions. She had believed love must be loud, powerful, and chosen freely, but what if love could also be gentle, patient, and built slowly? Late one evening, as they sat together in silence, she realized something had changed. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt peaceful. For the first time, she felt calm sitting beside him. She was not ready to call it love, but she knew one thing for certain. He had given her respect when she least expected it. And that respect was slowly changing everything inside her. She did not know where this path would lead, but for the first time since the forced decision, she felt hope quietly return to her heart. Life slowly began to feel different. The days no longer felt heavy, and the nights no longer felt lonely. Without realizing it, she had started to smile again, even if only for a moment. The small house that once felt strange now carried a sense of warmth. It was not luxury or comfort that changed it, but the quiet understanding growing between them. Their conversations became more natural. They talked about simple things, daily routines, small worries, and little joys. Sometimes they laughed at ordinary moments, surprised by how easily laughter appeared. She noticed how he never judged her thoughts. Even when she spoke hesitantly, he listened with patience, making her feel heard. She began to trust him, slowly but sincerely. Trust did not arrive suddenly. It grew through consistent care. Every day he showed her that she mattered, not through grand actions, but through steady presence. He remembered small details about her, like the food she liked or the time she needed silence. These small things touched her deeply. One afternoon she visited her parents' house for the first time after the marriage. She felt nervous walking through the familiar door. Everything looked the same, yet she felt different. Relatives were present, and their eyes followed her movements closely. She sensed judgment in their whispers, curiosity in their questions. Her husband stood beside her quietly, did not try to control the situation. He did not speak unless necessary, but his presence gave her strength. When someone made a careless comment about her life, he responded calmly, defending her dignity without creating conflict. She noticed how her parents watched this exchange in silence. For the first time, she realized that he was not just supporting her inside their home, but also protecting her in front of others. That realization stayed with her long after they returned. Back home, she thought deeply about everything. She remembered how she had once believed her life had ended with the forced marriage. Now, she saw how wrong that belief had been. Her life had changed, yes, but it had not ended. It was transforming in ways she had never imagined. She began to participate more in daily life. She took interest in managing the home, making it feel more personal. He encouraged her gently, never forcing responsibility on her. When she shared an idea, he supported it. When she hesitated, he waited. One evening, they talked about the future for the first time. Not in big plans, but in quiet hopes. She spoke about learning new skills. He listened carefully and encouraged her without hesitation. He told her he believed in her abilities. Those words touched her deeply. No one had ever said that to her so sincerely before. Outside challenges did not disappear. Life still tested them. Financial struggles returned at times. There were days when stress filled the air, but instead of falling apart, they faced difficulties together. They talked. They planned. They supported each other. One day, her family faced a serious problem. They needed help urgently. She felt torn. Old wounds reopened, but she did not turn away. Her husband did not hesitate either. Without reminding her of the past, he stepped forward to help her family. She watched him handle the situation with maturity and calm strength. He did not seek approval. He did not remind anyone of what they had done. He acted out of respect for her. That moment changed something deep inside her. Her parents saw him differently that day. For the first time, they saw not a servant, but a man of character. They saw his honesty, his responsibility, and his quiet confidence. Though they did not say much, their attitude softened. Later that night, she sat alone, reflecting on her journey. She thought about the pain, the anger, and the fears she once carried. She realized that love had entered her life quietly, without force, without demand. It had grown through understanding, not obligation. She felt gratitude for his patience, his respect, and his kindness. She also felt guilt for the resentment she had once held against him. But instead of letting that guilt hurt her, she allowed it to teach her compassion. Their bond had grown stronger than she ever expected. They had not chosen this beginning, but they had chosen how to move forward. That choice made all the difference. One evening, as they sat together after a long day, she thanked him softly. The words felt small compared to what she felt, but they were sincere. He smiled gently, not expecting praise, simply happy to see her at peace. That night, she realized something important. Love did not always arrive the way people expected. Sometimes it arrived quietly, through patience, respect, and shared struggles. And when it did, it was strong enough to heal even the deepest wounds. Her heart, once filled with resistance, now held acceptance. She no longer saw herself as trapped. She saw herself as growing. And beside her stood a man who had given her something rare. Love that asked for nothing, yet gave her everything she needed. She did not know what the future held, but she knew one thing with certainty. She was no longer afraid of it. Life has a strange way of testing people when they least expect it. Just when she began to feel settled, just when her heart finally found peace, a new challenge appeared. One that would force her to make a choice she never imagined she would face. One afternoon, a message arrived from her parents' house. Her mother's voice on the phone sounded different, softer, uncertain. Circumstances had changed. The family situation had improved. Social pressure had eased. Relatives who once whispered were now silent. Her parents told her she could return home if she wished. They said she did not have to stay in this marriage anymore. The words shook her deeply. That night she sat alone, her thoughts heavy. For a long time she had believed she wanted this moment. She had imagined leaving, imagined freedom, imagined starting over. But now that the door was open, her heart felt confused instead of relieved. She looked around the small house, the place that once felt like a prison, but now felt like home. Every corner held memories of quiet care, shared struggles, and gentle understanding. This was where she had learned what respect truly meant. This was where she had healed. Her husband noticed her silence. He sensed the storm inside her, but he did not push. Later, she told him everything. She told him about the call, about the choice her parents had offered. She spoke honestly, without fear. He listened carefully, his face calm, his eyes kind. When she finished, he surprised her with his response. He told her the decision was hers alone. He said he would respect her choice, no matter what it was. There was no fear in his voice, no pressure, no demand. That moment changed everything. For the first time in her life, she felt truly free to choose. She spent days thinking. She remembered the girl she once was, silent, unheard, full of dreams locked away. She thought about how far she had come. She asked herself an honest question. Was she staying because she was afraid to leave, or because she wanted to stay? The answer came slowly, but clearly. She stayed because she loved him. Not the loud, dramatic kind of love people talked about, but a deep, steady love built on trust and dignity. The kind of love that gave her space to grow, that never tried to control her, that stood beside her quietly. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. She told him she wanted to stay, not because she had to, but because she chose to. His eyes filled with emotion, but he said nothing dramatic. He simply nodded, gratitude clear in his expression. Soon after, she visited her parents' house again, this time with confidence. She spoke clearly, without anger or fear. She told them she was happy. She told them she respected their concerns, but her life now belonged to her. She told them she would not leave her husband. The room fell silent. They saw strength where they once saw obedience. They saw a woman who had found her voice. Though it was difficult for them, they accepted her decision. As time passed, the world around them slowly changed. People who once judged began to quiet down. Some even showed respect. Others stayed distant, but their opinions no longer mattered to her. She continued to grow. She learned new skills. She began to contribute to the household in ways that made her feel proud. Her husband supported her every step, never standing in her shadow, never standing ahead of her, always beside her. Together, they built a life that felt honest and real. It was not perfect. There were still struggles, still challenges, but they faced them together with open communication and shared strength. One evening, as they sat quietly watching the sky change colors, she realized how much she had changed. The pain of the past no longer controlled her. The forced beginning no longer defined her story. She had taken control of her life, one choice at a time. She looked at the man beside her, the man she once resented, misunderstood, and feared. Now, she saw him clearly, not as a servant, not as a solution, but as a partner, as family. Love had come into her life in an unexpected way, through patience and respect. It taught her that worth is not decided by status, and happiness is not given. It is chosen. Her story did not begin with choice, but it ended with one, and that choice made all the difference. In the end, she did not lose herself.